This will be about the realest conversation you'll ever have. So let me ask you something. What if the biggest lie you've ever believed didn't come from your enemies, didn't come from your past, but came from you? Not because you're weak, not because you're broken, but because somewhere along the way, you learned to doubt yourself to survive. That's what we're talking about today. Self-gaslighting. When you start questioning your own reality. When you talk yourself out of your own truth. When you minimize your pain. Excuse other people's behavior. And convince yourself, maybe it's just me. The Bible says in Proverbs 4 verse 23, guard your heart above all else, for everything you do flows from it. But what happens when your heart isn't being attacked by others, but by your own thoughts? And in John 8 verse 32, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. But how can truth set you free? If you keep rewriting it in your own mind. What self-gaslighting looks like. Let's not dress this up. Self-gaslighting sounds like, I'm probably overreacting. It wasn't that bad. It's my fault anyway. I'm just too sensitive. I should have known better. You start doubting your memory, invalidating your feelings, excusing toxic behavior, and shrinking your voice. Until one day, you don't even trust yourself anymore. Maybe it was my fault. I once knew a woman. We'll call her Danielle. Danielle was in a relationship where she was constantly dismissed. Every time she brought up something that hurt her, she'd hear, "You're too emotional. You're imagining things. That never happened." At first she pushed back. But over time she started saying, maybe I am too much. Maybe I did misunderstand. And here's where it broke her. She started apologizing for things she didn't do. One day she told me, I don't even know what's real anymore. That's self-gaslighting. Not just being lied to, but continuing the lie yourself. Why we do this? Let's be honest. We don't gaslight ourselves for fun. We do it because the truth feels dangerous, conflict feels overwhelming, and rejection feels unbearable. So we rewrite reality to feel safe. Books like The Mountain Is You explains how self-sabotage often comes from trying to protect ourselves in the wrong way. And Atomic Habits reminds us that small repeated thoughts shape identity. So if you keep thinking, I'm not enough, I'm always wrong, eventually, that becomes your identity. The memory I tried to erase. Let me get personal for a moment. There was a time in my life when something happened that hurt me deeply. And instead of acknowledging it, I minimized it. I told myself, it wasn't that serious. Other people have it worse. I should just move on. But here's what I didn't realize. Ignoring pain doesn't heal it. It buries it, and buried pain doesn't disappear. It will control you quietly. It showed up as anxiety, self-doubt, and overthinking everything. Until I finally admitted, that hurt me. And that moment, that was the beginning of healing. Signs you're gaslighting yourself. If this hits home, listen closely. You might be self-gaslighting if you constantly second-guess yourself. You feel like you can't trust your memory. You blame yourself for everything. You feel like you're never enough. You invalidate your own emotions. You feel disconnected from reality, and the most dangerous one, you don't trust your own voice anymore. God is not confusing you. Let's anchor this spiritually. 1 Corinthians 14 verse 33 says, God is not the author of confusion, but of peace. So if your mind is constantly chaotic, doubtful, or self-attacking, that's not from God. That's learned thinking. And you can unlearn this. The boundary that changed everything. A man I know, Marcus, was the nice guy. Always saying yes. Always accommodating. Always making excuses for people. People walked over him constantly. But whenever someone crossed a line, he'd say, "They didn't mean it. It's not a big deal. I'm just being sensitive." Until one day, he hit a breaking point. And for the first time in his life, he said, "No." And guess what? He felt guilty, uncomfortable, almost like he did something wrong. Why? Because he had trained himself to betray himself. But over time, that no became freedom. How to break free. 1. Practice self-awareness. Start by journaling your thoughts and feelings regularly. Set aside a few minutes each day for mindfulness meditation to help you stay present and tuned into your thoughts and emotions. Not perfectly, not poetically, just honesty. Books like The Gifts of Imperfection emphasize embracing truth over perfection. Ask yourself, what am I feeling? What actually happened? What story am I telling myself? 2. Challenge your inner voice. When you catch yourself engaging in self-critical thoughts like, "I'm stupid," pause and ask yourself if you would say those things to a friend in a similar situation. If not, why say it to yourself? Replace those negative thoughts with affirmations or positive statements to boost your self-esteem with statements like, "I'm learning. I'm growing. I'm allowed to make mistakes." 3. Set boundaries without apology. This is where people struggle. Identify situations or relationships that trigger self-gaslighting tendencies and establish clear boundaries to protect your emotional well-being. Because saying no feels like rejection. But hear this. Boundaries don't push people away. They reveal who respects you. 4. Build a self-care system. Make self-care a non-negotiable part of your routine by engaging in activities that nourish your body, mind, and soul. Not just bubble baths and candles. Real care is rest, silence, reflection, and healthy distance from chaos. Extra tip would be to create a self-care toolbox filled with things that bring you comfort and peace at moments of self-doubt, such as a favorite book, soothing music, a scented candle, or a cozy blanket. 5. Practice self-compassion. Practice self-compassion by acknowledging your worth, embracing your imperfections, and forgiving yourself for past mistakes. Start a self-love journal where you write down things you appreciate about yourself, moments of growth, and acts of self-compassion. You are not your mistakes. You are not your worst moment. You are not the voice in your head that tears you down. As reinforced in you are a badass. You have to consciously rewrite the narrative. The emotional turning point. Let me say something that might hit deep. Some of you have been more loyal to your self-criticism than you've ever been to your self-love. You defend your flaws. You justify your pain. You protect the lie. But today, you don't have to do that anymore. The truth will set you free. You're not crazy. You are not too much. You are not always wrong. You are someone who learned to survive by doubting yourself. But survival is not the same as freedom. And today, you choose freedom. So the next time that voice says, "It's your fault," you respond, "No, that's not the truth." Because the truth is, you are worthy, you are aware, you are healing, you are growing, and most importantly, you are learning to trust yourself again. Stop lying to yourself. Because your healing begins the moment you finally tell yourself the truth.